Hi everybody, welcome. In this video, I'm going to go over the service learning / field experience / joy of reading component that is in our course. The reason that we have the slashes is because there's 3 different options for completing the 10 hours of reading with a child and sharing the joy of reading in this class. So up here at the top of our course, really, right under Literature Studies, is the Service Learning Field Experience Joy of Reading module. This is up here at the top for your viewing throughout the entire semester. So you can always refer to it. It's where you're going to find the required paperwork. It's where you can actually be submitting your final paperwork at the end of the semester. You can see the final due date is the very end of our semester. So everything is housed for the 10 hours in this module, so it's nice and neat. As I mentioned, there's 3 options. There's a service learning option, there's a field placement option if you are currently working in the field and would like to use your place of work for your hours, or there is sharing the joy of reading with a child. Let's see. So the first one I'm going to click on is the Service Learning Field Placement Overview. It gives you just an overall understanding that there is a required 10 hours of reading that will take place in either a classroom setting or another setting of your choice if you choose the option 2 selection. So the goal of the 10 hours for this course is to truly share the joy of reading with a child or a group of children. If you are going into a classroom setting or in your work setting, your hours must be spent reading with children. They are not to be spent grading papers or running lessons or doing any sort of testing. It is simply to be sharing that joy of reading books with children. This can be with children starting as early as preschool age all the way through senior year of high school. So it's very open and wide open with the age range in which you choose, but it should be a time in which you and your chosen group or student or child are sitting and really just enjoying reading together. So those of you who are interested in completing the service learning component, you would be choosing option 1A, which is service learning. You need to take a look at the service learning orientation video. It is an in-depth video that goes over service learning requirements for MCC. It's very important that you take the time to watch this because it's going to answer a lot of questions and give you important due dates and also explain the various paperwork that needs to be submitted. Option 2B is a work placement or field experience placement. This is if you are currently working in the field or volunteering in the field and you want to complete your hours in that classroom setting, then you wouldn't be getting service learning civic engagement experience through MCC. There would be no civic engagement certificate, but you would get that work placement option. So if you're working in the field, you can absolutely use your classroom as an option. So that would be option 1B, and you'd be turning in the work placement paperwork. Option 2 is completely different. This is if you are not currently working in the classroom and you just do not have the opportunity, the time, or the availability to be placed in an actual classroom setting to complete service learning hours. This is for you. You can choose a child or group of children to read to in person or virtually and complete your 10 hours with that child. You will document your hours, your reading time, and your reflection of the experience in this joy of learning reflection, and be turning that in as your required paperwork at the end of the semester. So if you did field experience or service learning, you will have a lot more paperwork to submit because there is, of course, required assumption of risk and liability and placement confirmation and things that must be submitted. If you were doing option 2, which is just sharing the joy of reading with a child, family member, friend, or neighbor, or anybody else, then you would not be required to turn in that paperwork. So your requirement would simply be the Joy of Reading Reflection Journal. That being said, option 1, A and B, service learning and work placement, also must complete the Joy of Reading Reflection Journal as well. So just to take a look, what this reflection journal is you would make a copy, and every time you meet to read with your group of students or child that you are reading with, you will write the date, the times, how many times you met for the week, a quick summary of what happened, summary of observations and participants, just what did you do, what went well, what books did you read, did you use any strategies to engage the students, and so on. And then reflect what could have gone better, what ideas do you want to try for next time, what questions were raised. When we do anything, when we work with young children, there is always a time for reflection so that we can decide if what we did went well, how we can make it better next time, or if what we did not go well, how we could improve so that the next time we meet, it does go well. So this is really what you will be completing every time you meet, whether you meet hourly, whether you meet in 15-minute increments, however that time works for you. So all options will be submitting this reflection journal, as well as both options must complete a book card. This is called a Service Learning Field Experience book card. And we're going to click, we're going to make a copy. And really what this is no matter what you chose, if you were working in service learning in your work placement or working with a young child at home by sharing that joy of reading, I want you to choose one book that you read with your chosen child over the time. So if you're reading with young children, you're reading multiple books, I am sure. But just choose one of those books. If you're reading with older kids, chances are you're going to be maybe choosing to go with a chapter book. So you may have less options, but either way, just choose one that they really liked, that really interested everybody, and make your book card based on that book. You'll give us a quick synopsis of the book in your own words, choose a favorite quote, and then you will come up with 2 comprehension questions that you can use to help children or help students understand the book so that you make sure that they are understanding what they are reading. So they're comprehension questions. These are questions that really should have a right answer, right? When you're asking something specific that happened in the book that they need to recall. So choose 2 comprehension questions, but then I also want you to choose or come up with 3 open-ended discussion questions that don't necessarily have a right answer, but open up the conversation about the story or the characters or the ideas that are happening in the book. This should be questions that allow children to really think inquisitively about what they've been reading and allow them to maybe make personal connections to their own lives and experiences. And that's when the text really comes alive. So these discussion questions should be fun, they should be interactive, and there isn't necessarily one right answer. It should open up that conversation. So coming up with 3 of those discussion questions. Next, you are going to plan an activity as if you are planning a lesson in a classroom. Come up with a content area. You do not need to put specific state standards here. It's just a content area that this would be focusing on, whether it be language arts, math, social studies, whatever the content area is that you want to be focusing on. Give the activity a title, and then give a statement of what the objective is for the activity. What are they supposed to be learning or completing or be able to do once this activity has been completed? Tell us what the materials are for that activity and give us some step-by-step instructions of the activity. You do not have to do this activity with your students that you're sharing the joy of reading with, but this is just an assignment that you'll be submitting to me. If you do actually do the activity, that's fantastic, but it is not required. But as you're reading with your students, especially the older students, I definitely recommend using the strategy of asking comprehension questions to make sure that they are understanding what they're reading, and asking open-ended discussion questions throughout that time that you are meeting with the students, because it does make the shared book experience much more engaging and fun and enjoyable, and that truly brings out that joy of reading that we are so hoping each of the students that are working with you will receive. So everyone must submit a book card, and everyone must submit the reflection journal at the end of the course. And as we jump back over to our module, I want to point out this drop box, which is where you would be submitting your paperwork for the chosen service learning or field experience choices 1A and 1B. So if you click here, you'll see that there is a due date, because we do want to make sure that your paperwork is submitted on time. So do mind the posted due date. This is a really important link because it gives a lot more information on completing the service learning hours. The two predetermined schools for completing service learning hours are Eisenhower Elementary or Whittier Elementary. These are the only two schools that we are working with for service learning. It's in the Mesa Public Schools district. So all service learning requirements will be completed at these schools. We do have a child development lab located on the Dobson campus. If you are interested in completing your hours in the Child Development Lab, you need to speak with me or email me right away. There is very limited opportunities there, but it is available for until the space has been filled. So that is an option. So if you are interested in that, please email me through Canvas right away. Once you have decided what school, so for example, say you want to complete your hours at Eisenhower Elementary, you will click on the Eisenhower link, and it will then give you a Google page to submit. It's basically just letting Eisenhower know that you are interested in completing those hours. The same with Whittier Elementary. So you can complete both to see if either one might have placement. And then step 2 is to complete the field experience volunteer application. This is required paperwork for service learning, but is not required for the Child Development Lab. So if you are, again, wanting to work at the lab, please let me know and we can go from there. But if you are going with Eisenhower or Whittier, you will need to complete this packet. I recommend taking a look at these slides because it gives you a more in-depth understanding of the experience. If you are completing option 2, which is the employment work, the work experience option, you need to follow the directions here that explain exactly the paperwork that needs to be submitted. You will click on the work placement confirmation. There is required paperwork there. Each one is individual, so depending on what you've chosen will be what is submitted. Please, again, mind the required due date. There is not credit, there's not points for this because not everyone will be receiving, some people are choosing a different option, but it's required to make sure that you are on track. So do make sure that you have completed your requirements. And if you have any questions, please email me through Canvas and I'll make sure if I don't know the answer, to get you to the right person who can answer your questions. Okay, so as we jump back to the module, you will see that you do need to submit your required choice or paperwork by a due date. So as I mentioned, up here is where you would submit option 1, which is service learning or field experience required paperwork. And if you were choosing option 2, which is sharing the joy of reading, you will simply click here, Joy of Reading choice, and you will submit the statement, I have chosen to complete the 10 hours of sharing the joy of reading with, and then tell me who. My child, age 5, my neighbor, age 14, my niece, age 12. And then that will complete your requirement, and you don't need to submit anything else until the end of the semester. If you have any questions between now and you choosing your choice, please email me through Canvas, and I hope you have a wonderful time with this